plants and what they can do and what they're capable of. And, you know, things like this kind of give me more of a realization that, wow, plants can actually do things for me. So,
my name is Michael Conlan, and I've been writing about...
Okay, so for example, terpenes, which are a secondary metabolite, they are toxins for things like caterpillars and bugs that feed on plants. But interestingly, for humans, terpenes inhibit the accumulation of toxins in the body, and they help discharge these toxins from the liver and kidneys. So, you know, it's just, it actually is beneficial for us. For example, lemon has strong antiviral properties and has been found in 90% of citrus oils. Citrus oils have the ability to stimulate the production of liver detoxifying enzymes, and which help the body systems to run more smoothly and efficiently. That's why all the rave with detox diets and everything, it's because, you know, we want our bodies to be more efficient, and that's how we feel better. Let's go back to basic biology a little bit. The body has two primary ways to communicate, through the nervous and endocrine system. Nervous system is a little more obvious. Endocrine system, that's our hormones. Gets a little complicated, but it's still how the cells relate to each other and get things done in the body. All bodily functions occur as a chain reaction based on communication on a molecular level. With breakdown in communication, you get breakdown in organ and body system functions, which affects our overall health. So, when we talk about cancer, cancer happens because cells are rapidly reproducing, and they're reproducing based on improper DNA coding. So when our DNA, when cells reproduce, they transcribe the DNA, and so they make a copy of the original cell, and that's how tissues and organs grow. So there's an enzyme. Well, let's back up for a second. Cholesterol is required to regenerate cells. It's important for this process to happen, the process of growth and cell regeneration. So in normal cell reproduction, cholesterol, there's an enzyme that stops cholesterol from being produced in your body. Well, with cancer, it's like the switch is broken, and cholesterol just keeps getting produced and produced and produced. And that's why we end up with tumors. So here's a little blip on that.
We all start life as one single cell. Then that cell divides and we're two cells, then 4, then 8. Cells form tissues, tissues form organs, organs form us. These cell divisions, by which we go from a single cell to 100 trillion cells, are called growth. And growth seems like a simple thing because when we think of it, we typically think of someone getting taller, or later in life, wider. But to cells, growth isn't simple. Cell division is an intricate chemical dance that's part individual, part community-driven. And in a neighborhood of 100 trillion cells, sometimes things go wrong. Maybe an individual cell's set of instructions, or DNA, gets a typo, what we call a mutation. Most of the time, the cell senses mistakes and shuts itself down, or the system detects a troublemaker and eliminates it. But enough mutations can bypass these fail-safes, driving the cell to divide recklessly. That one rogue cell becomes 2, then 4, then 8. At every stage, the incorrect instructions are passed along to the cell's offspring. Weeks, months, or years after that one rogue cell transformed, you might see your doctor about a lump in your breast. Difficulty going to the bathroom could reveal a problem in your intestine, prostate, or bladder. Or the routine blood test might count too many white cells or elevated liver enzymes. Your doctor delivers the bad news. It's cancer.
So that was just a little visual on what I was talking about. So with essential oils, getting back to how that kind of ties in with how cancer and our cells work. this is the most fascinating part to me. I love this. So all of our cells have a cell membrane. So it's like a cell wall. And they have these little things on them called receptors. Receptors receive messages from other cells in various places in the body. So, for example, proteins, so those little, the colored ones that are kind of floating on top, can bind with the receptors to basically work like a key, unlocking the ability to communicate the message, letting things in and out of the cell, so that body tasks can be completed, functions can be completed in the body. So, I mean, when you think about it on such a small level, it's like a little city, you know, things inside our bodies are just constantly working together to function. So with essential oils, sesquiterpene molecules deliver oxygen to cells. So much like hemoglobin delivers oxygen to the different tissues. So the amazing thing is that essential oils can actually act as substrates where they're, you know, see the ones that don't have anything in them. An essential oil can find that receptor site, attach itself, and cause the cell to function in the way that it needs to. So that's why when we talk about metabolic turnover, your body can more easily function and be in health because you're giving it what it needs to function. In addition, these molecules can actually delete bad information in cellular memory, removing miswritten DNA codes. So when we talk about cancer, and that's why it's so important, you know, to have proper DNA coding when there's all this toxins and stuff floating around in your body, things get misconstrued. So, you know, it's good to have everything cleared out so we can be healthy and function properly. Here's an interesting fact. The enzyme in tumor cells resembles that of fungi. I'm saying that right? Which grows very quickly. It's a fungi. It's a fungi, which grows very rapidly with the cell production. Plants have learned that essential oil terpenes can switch this enzyme off, shutting down the synthesis of cholesterol in new cell growth. That's interesting. And I mean, that's based on research, you know, so you can check out my references. Essential oils cover a broader spectrum than pharmaceutical drugs. Let me just stop here for 1 second. When I said I used to have headaches a lot, you know, you pop an aspirin, you pop ibuprofen or whatever. Well, I started getting lots of stomach issues from all of these drugs because the side effects of drugs are just, you know, they're rampant. And if you watch one of these videos or one of these advertisements on drugs, you see the list. I mean, and they're long, and some of them end in death. You know, I mean, it's not common, but it's still, I mean, it's there. So not something I really wanted to mess around with. So I really liked the idea of having an alternative way of promoting health than popping pills all the time. So essential oils have many chemical components within one oil, with each component having its own role in healing. Many of these chemicals have not even been identified, which is amazing. I think that's why the science community is so stumped by these things, because they're so complex. Essential oils are constantly changing due to the plant's adaptation to their environment. Light, temperature, exposure to various herbivores and pathogens all affect the production of chemical components within the plant, changing its structure from plant to plant, even within the same plant genus. Pharmaceuticals isolate components so they can ensure predictable outcomes and dominate a profit-driven industry. It's easier to control predictable outcomes by isolating a chemical component from the willow tree and calling it aspirin, for example. The power of plants is in their ability to change and adapt, and that simply can't be replicated in a lab. Essential oils benefit us by providing numerous lines of defenses, even within a single oil, which work together to promote the body's own natural healing process versus targeting symptoms. Okay, this is amazing. You guys are gonna love this. I was floored.
Tonight, Baldwin is in the field trying to lure the moth in through the irresistible draw of light. Wild tobacco flowers bloom at dusk, the perfect draw for a nocturnal pollinator like the hawk moth. As the moth sips nectar, it gathers pollen, spreading it from one plant to the next. But while the moth happily does the plant's sexual bidding, it has its own reproductive agenda. A single moth can lay as many as 200 eggs, eggs that grow into plant-munching caterpillars. So sometimes, despite its best defenses, the wild tobacco can still get infested with caterpillars. Even then, the plant has another card to play. It simply switches pollinators. Baldwin's colleague Danny Kessler was the first to observe this astonishing behavior. He was out photographing tobacco plants in the early hours before dawn. Most were infested with caterpillars. As he worked, he began to notice something unusual. Instead of blooming at night, some of the flowers were opening at dawn. And the daytime flowers didn't look or smell the way they should.
They differed completely from the night opening flowers in terms of nectar volume, sugar concentration, and what we found out later, even they didn't emit floral volatile as well. When we walked around and we saw that almost any plant had caterpillars on them. It was really a huge outbreak. And we felt, what's going on here? It's kind of, it was weird, right?
And the weirdness continued. Not only had the bloom's nectar and perfume changed, the shape of the flower itself had completely transformed. Essentially, by changing its flowers and bloom time, the plant had stopped talking to its nocturnal pollinator, the hawk moth, and struck up a conversation with the daytime pollinator, the hummingbird.
How cool is that? So that's an example of how the plants adapt, and it's not even an evolutionary thing. It's like this happens in a matter of days or weeks. I don't know, but you know, the plants are literally changing their chemical makeup to change their DNA, to change the structure of the flower. So that is just incredible to me. Okay, isolating chemical components makes drugs less beneficial. The body is more likely to recognize isolated components as toxic invaders, and there will be a higher incidence of side effects as a result. In addition, isolating chemical components, as in pharmacology, produces the exact same molecular structure each time. But with essential oils, the body will be less likely to develop resistance because of the slight variation with each essential oil. Drugs often promote development of resistance, and many people become dependent or require higher doses to obtain the desired effect. Says it all. It's just amazing. This slide, we weren't able to embed it into the video, into this presentation, but you can check it out on your own if you want. But basically, they did a comparison between benzoyl peroxide and melaleuca oil, which is tea tree oil. They found that both were very similar in the ability to eliminate acne or, you know, promote the health of the skin. But the Melaleuca had way fewer side effects than the benzoyl peroxide did. I thought that was very interesting. Let's look at Roman chamomile versus aspirin. Roman chamomile is composed of all of these chemicals that I'm not going to read right now, but these are the known chemical components in Roman chamomile, and I may not even have all of them listed. Let's just look at one of them. Alpha-pinene alone has properties that are anti-inflammatory, and antimicrobial. It's known to improve cough productivity, promotes healing of eczema, and assists with removing fungal infections, to name a few benefits. And that's one chemical oil or chemical component of chamomile oil. The active ingredient aspirin, which is a synthetic derivative of the willow tree, has a lot of side effects. So, you know, it's just an interesting comparison between the two. Let's look at this quote from this doctor who's a professor of the International Medicine at the University of Michigan Medical School. When you take aspirin, the level of stomach protection is decreased, and you're more likely to bleed. Thus, people who take aspirin regularly, even in a buffeted or coated form, will have roughly double the likelihood of having a perforated ulcer or bleeding in the GI tract. Relatively little attention is paid to this problem that kills more people in the US each year than asthma or cervical cancer. What we need to do is focus less attention on finding more things that make aspirin look good. We have plenty of those, and think more about focusing on how to minimize risks. So it's just a little quote there. I thought this was amazing. We actually switched vitamins recently from synthetic to dehydrated fruits and vegetables because my doctor recommended it. He's pretty cool. If you look at one apple, you can see that this is a very extensive list of many of the things that are found in apple that support nutrition, in an apple that support nutrition. Not going to read that either, but you can see that it's a lot. The interesting thing is the intelligence of plants to produce the complex multiple chemical components in each essential oil cannot be compared to pharmaceutical science. Let's look at vitamins as an example. Vitamins do not work as effectively and can be toxic if taken in isolation. For example, vitamin A requires beta-carotene in order to be absorbed efficiently in our bodies. Interestingly, carrots contain both vitamin A and beta-carotene, along with many other bioavailable nutrients that help us absorb the vitamins. Vitamin A can be toxic in high doses when taken on its own, but one cannot overdose on carrots. So, you know, they actually used to put vitamin A in multivitamins, but have more recently removed it because of the toxicity levels. And who knows what vitamins that we're taking can potentially be toxic, you know, synthetic vitamins. So I just decided, you know what, rather than wait for the FDA to discover it, let's just eliminate it. Essential oils are safer and more effective than isolated synthetic chemicals because their broad chemical structures are left intact. Essential oils are made using whole plant parts containing naturally occurring chemical components, which I love. Anytime we eat plant matter, this is my own quote, okay? I just had to put it in there. Anytime we eat plant matter, we are ingesting essential oils. It is as though the government wants to put safety regulations on plants as a resource. Food is our medicine, plants are food. Essential oils, more effective than antibiotics. Love this because there's a study that just came out more recently with essential oils in the food industry. And I'll talk about that in a minute. Essential oils have a multi-target impact on bacterium, meaning they are non-selective. They can affect bacterial cells in various physiological systems and membrane, including proteins and DNA. Antibiotics are selective, meaning they have a single function to disable the pathogen. They can only attach themselves on a single receptor on a cell, which makes antibiotics limited in their ability to disable pathogens. Essential oil components will hit boundless number of protein targets. One plant oil containing many components can interact with our body's proteins and various cell walls. Okay, so, if you picture an army and, one side has one weapon, the other side has many, many different types of weapons. The one that has lots of weapons are going to be able to disable the single guy because they just have more things to get them. Let's be honest. So I just think that's cool that, creation is made with all of these things naturally. And when we try to replicate it, we really narrow down the ability to be as powerful. Let's look at lavender for an example. It has many components, one of which is lanolin. Lanolin alone has the ability to promote rapid wound healing, including burns, inhibits tumor growth, reduces spasms, is anticonvulsant, modifies the autonomic nervous system, which is the system responsible for your fight or flight, which is why it has such a calming effect. And lavender contains, that's just one component, and lavender contains 1,200 identified multi-target components. Wow, that's powerful. That is the power of essential oils. This is a quote from the senior national program leader from the USDA. The loss of antibiotics due to antimicrobial resistance is potentially one of the most important challenges the medical and animal health communities will face in the 21st century. These superbugs that we're creating by doling out antibiotics is really a problem because we are, taking all these drugs, I don't want to feel sick anymore, I'm just going to take this drug, clear it up fast, and move on with my life. It's not really working anymore, because people are still feeling sick and getting more chronic issues because their immune systems are getting wiped out. Your gut flora is so important for your immune system to be able to function. So, it's important that we talk about these things because it's not really in the best interest of our health as a society. Microbes are outsmarting drugs, but plants are keeping up. I love that title. Microbes, including bacteria, have the ability to adapt and evolve to overcome obstacles. With antibiotics' unitarget ability, microbes have figured out how to outsmart antibiotics through mutations. So when we talk about plants adapting and changing to, fend off the caterpillar or to invite the hummingbird, those are small changes in their DNA that benefit them. The bacteria are doing the same thing. So here we are trying to, as a medical community, trying to combat these bacterias with, something that is stationary, doesn't change, doesn't grow. And we're losing out, the bacteria is winning, basically. Bacteria is alive, bacteria is growing, bacteria is changing. Why not combat it with something that is also alive and changing and developing its resistance alongside, so that we're, we have a level ground here. Pretty much kind of talked about that. I don't know if I need to read it, but I will anyway. As we learned earlier, plants change the output of chemical constituents produced as an immune response to environmental stressors. Essential oils harness the power of these plants' immunity with powerful antibacterial, antiviral, and antifungal properties. Studies are being done in the food industry with essential oils in chickens versus antibiotics to help control the spread of disease, and are having positive results. One of our studies, published in October 2014 in the Journal of Poultry Science, found that chickens who consumed feed with added oregano oil had a 59% lower mortality rate due to ascites, a common infection in poultry, than untreated chickens. Other research from 2011 showed that adding a combination of plant extracts from oregano, cinnamon, and chili peppers actually changed the gene expression of treated chickens, resulting in weight gain as well as protection against an injected intestinal infection. So there's proof right here. We're talking about changes in the DNA, which actually help the chickens have a better chance. Essential oil, I love this. Meg, you're gonna love this. Essential oils do not disrupt the healthy gut flora like antibiotics do. I was so interested to find this out because, you know, when we're comparing antibiotics, that's one of the bigger issues. Antibiotics are designed to eliminate harmful bacteria, which means they will also remove healthy bacteria in the gut, which we talked about, which affects healthy digestion and nutrient absorption. Essential oil intelligence has the ability to destroy pathogenic bacteria while keeping the healthy probiotics intact, preserving nutrition absorption and overall health. And this quote was from Robert Tisserand, who wrote The Safety on Essential Oils, and he also teaches at a school in the UK. There was no clinical evidence that essential oils negatively affect the gut flora. Decades of clinical experience from doctors in France suggest that essential oils frequently heal both acute and chronic infections without the damaging and often long-lasting effect on bowel flora that comes from the use of antibiotics. This is a little interesting fact, but it's a very important one. Essential oil molecules are small enough to cross the blood-brain barrier. So our body is made up with these different protective measures to keep toxins from entering the brain and the spinal column. Our blood does carry some of these toxins because, you know, when we're breathing in the air, it's getting into our bloodstream through our lungs. And also, the blood needs to carry it to our liver so that we can flush everything out. But there's a lining that keeps many of these toxins out of our brain and our spinal column. But essential oils are small enough to penetrate, so that this layer of tissue is permeable to essential oils. Many drugs, though, don't cross this barrier, so they're not as effective with things like, well, I'm not going to get too specific, but we'll just leave it there. Essential oils are a safer option than regulated consumables. This also came from Robert Tisserand's website. Quote, on hazardous substances, I would also point out that a tube of children's toothpaste contains enough fluoride to kill 4 to 6 young children if they digested it. Yet, there are no safety warnings on toothpaste. Perhaps being made by a pharmaceutical company makes the difference. Most of the clinical testing of drugs and cosmetics are funded by the industry themselves, having a monetary agenda with biased results.
Well, they do have a warning. It's not really a warning. They just say don't eat it.
Yeah, do not ingest. They don't say that there's toxic things in it. Yeah, there you go.
My parents didn't know I was getting stomach aches. He was eating the Pepsodent toothpaste.
Oh, wow.
He said, oh, this is peppermint. He was like maybe 3 or something, 4.
Well, it does taste good, you know.
Yeah.
They make it so it tastes good. Right? There are not many clinical studies done using essential oils because it's much easier to deem essential oils unsafe due to lack of testing. They don't want to pay for it. They don't want to pay for testing on this stuff because, you know, it's not as easy to patent, and it's just it's too hard to replicate. It's changing constantly. They can't, so they can't control it. They don't like it. Evidence for essential oil safety, as once again, this is another quote. As for evidence, this is Robert himself saying this. As for evidence, what I try to do is consider, is the evidence from traditional medicine? Is it purely laboratory work? Or is it clinical evidence? Clinical evidence shows that there's really an effect. And if you can also show why the effect takes place from other types of evidence, and if they tell the same story, then you have something solid. So, you know, it's not just based on what you find out in the lab. You know, it's not just based on what people are saying in their testimonials. It's both. And with essential oils, there is both. They are doing some testing, and there are many, many people having wonderful results that benefit their health by using essential oils. Essential oil safety continued. Very few essential oils have toxins that could be considered harmful. Even the oils that may contain such toxins, a person would have to consume an exorbitant amount of essential oils for it to be harmful. Essential oils are metabolized in the body within 90 minutes to 2 hours, which means they can safely be administered without negative effects. Your body, you know, uses them and cleanses, you know, whatever it doesn't need out fairly quickly. Reputable essential oils distribution companies have recognized that the way in which plants are harvested and processed affect the same, I'm sorry, doing a lot of reading here. Let's start again. Reputable essential oil distribution companies have recognized that the way in which plants are harvested and processed affects the safe therapeutic use of these oils. For example, distilling sage early in its life cycle when leaves are small yields an oil with very low toxicity. That being said, ketones, which can sometimes be considered toxic when consumed in high quantities, used therapeutically can actually benefit the body. So companies have figured out how to eliminate the amount of this in the oils by how they grow the stuff and when they harvest it and how they process it and stuff. Let's talk about ketones, which are sometimes considered toxic, but sometimes considered therapeutic. Ketones are sometimes considered neurotoxic when isolated from other constituents. However, all recorded toxic effects come from laboratory testing on guinea pigs and rats. No documented cases exist where oils with a high concentration of ketones, such as these oils, have ever caused a toxic effect on a human being. Also, large amounts of these oils would have to be consumed for them to result in a toxic neurological effect. Ketones stimulate cell regeneration, promote the formation of tissue, and liquefy mucus. They are helpful with such conditions as dry asthma, cold, flu, and dry cough, and are largely found in oils used for the upper respiratory system. And that's a quote from the Abundant Health website. So here are some benefits of using essential oils. I don't know that I need to read them all, but you can kind of glance through. Reducing inflammation, increased oxygen, which we talked about, inducing sleep, relaxation, improves allergy symptoms. Can I tell you, I used to be on allergy meds every spring. And I started using lavender oil, a little drop under my tongue every time I noticed a little stuffiness going on. And wow, in about an hour, it just went away. And I would have to say that the lifestyle change, the diet, everything has contributed to that. The health of my whole lifestyle. But lavender oil certainly has helped support that, and it's been amazing.
I use lavender oil when I have a headache.
Yeah.
It goes away immediately. It comes back in 20 minutes, but it goes away. It really works.
And you know what? That makes sense because essential oils are metabolized within an hour or two. So it's okay to then take another drop. Just carry it with you and whoop, pop it in. Does anybody have any questions, by the way? This has kind of been long and, okay. Just if you do, jump in. Okay, chamomile oil reducing inflammation. I like this little picture of these little free radical guys because they're like robbers. And they basically steal electrons from other molecules, creating unstable molecules that, you know, they need them to stabilize themselves, but, you know, they're stealing from healthy tissue, and that creates problems in our body tissue. Chamomile oil reduces inflammation by displacing these free radicals, which are agents of inflammation in the body. Free radicals are unstable molecules. Like I said, when I talk and don't read, I repeat myself, but I guess that's good because then you can get it twice. So they damage healthy tissue, basically. And it triggers your immune system. So if your immune system is constantly triggered, you're going to have inflammation in your body. And there's been a lot of talk about anti-inflammatories and trying to reduce inflammation, anti-inflammatory diets. You know, a lot of that is removing toxins and getting rid of the free radicals. How to administer essential oils. Pure therapeutic grade essential oils can be taken orally, topically, or inhaled. Inhalation is a powerful way for the tiny molecules to get straight to your bloodstream because they're going into your lungs and then they get absorbed right into your bloodstream. Internal application can be done with most oils, but you should check the label. Internal is a good way to address stomach issues or intestinal issues, just as an example. There's many other things. Topical use allows the tiny molecules to be absorbed through the skin. I was just online today and somebody posted something about, you know, can I use this cream while breastfeeding? And it was like some cosmetic tanning stuff. And I was like, oh Lord, help me restrain myself. But, you know, I just think about that and I'm like, people don't know that all of this stuff is getting absorbed through your skin and going straight to your bloodstream, which is going straight to your organs, straight to your tissues, and causing problems. And, you know, I was even looking on some links that were added to that, reputable links that say, oh, it's applied to your skin, so it's probably fine. Well, applying stuff to your skin is actually it can be more damaging than taking things internally. Your skin is very funny. What you put on your skin ends up in your body. And they've done testing with essential oils where, you know, things that the chemical components in the oils are in your bloodstream. And that also includes, that's not just oils, that's toxins that are in our cosmetics. So it's just something to keep in mind when we're talking about a lifestyle of health and healing and nutrition. Let's see. Suppositories is another way to do it. It's kind of weird, but you know what? There's a link between the rectum and the lungs, and it's like a direct connection. I'm not exactly sure how it's all lined up in there, but there's a circulatory connection is what it is. So these components can be quickly transported, and it's great for bronchitis and things like that. And it's a great way to do it for babies too, because, you know, this way they're not getting it in their eyes or whatever.
And also, you can't get babies to swallow things.
Yeah, right. That's true. And some of the oils are a little bit bitter and not so tasteful. So, to be perfectly honest, but when you get the results, I mean, lavender oil, I do it anyway. I do lavender oil. You can put it in a capsule, that's right, to get it internal if you don't like the taste. But I find that putting it under my tongue, for some reason, there's a lot of veins and your bloodstream is connected right there. So the absorption is very quick. when I first heard about essential oils, I thought it was kind of hokey. Let's be honest. You know, when most people talk about aromatherapy, it's like, it transports you to another place. It's just so wonderful. You just feel amazing. And you know, you just think of those Eastern type of people that, you know, do yoga and all this stuff. And I'm like, you know, I'm kind of scientific. Like, I need to know the facts. I don't want to just like stick stuff in my body that just seems nice. I want to know. So there really is a science behind the fragrance of essential oils, not just the chemical components. And I thought this was interesting enough to share. Our senses are a key communicator to body tissue and function, which establish our reality. What we perceive is what we believe. In addition to the various psychological effects of the sense of smell has in the body, like memory and positive experiences or negative experiences, fragrance has a physiological effect as well. Fragrance perception affects our body biology interacting with receptor systems and initiating cascades of biological responses. So actually just smelling an oil literally will affect the way your body functions. So for example, proteins translate sensory information to the brain and provide energy needed to transport the message. We're almost done, guys. It takes only 8 molecules of a substance to trigger an electrical response in the brain. So it sends communicative messages to your brain, causing all of these biological responses. But 40 nerve endings have to be stimulated before we even are conscious of any smell. So we can walk into your room, there's fragrance molecules all around us, but we don't even know what we're inhaling and breathing. So we're being this is what this means, guys. We are being neurologically and chemically affected by our environment, whether we realize it or not, which affects our mood, our energy levels, behavior, metabolic body functions, just by breathing the air around us. The sense of smell is closely linked to memory, the pineal gland, which impacts such things as hormonal balance and our perception of life experiences. That's everything. That affects, it touches on every single area of your life. Research tells us that the conscious thought is directly linked to our body's health, releasing various neurochemicals. So when you're thinking about negative things, you get a release of cortisol. When you are happy, when you're thinking about being happy, you get a release of dopamine. So, you know, these things are very powerful, and fragrance is one of those things. If fragrance molecules can affect our bodies on such a subconscious level, how much more will perceived fragrances affect our health? So this is just a little food for thought on the aroma part of the aroma side of the therapy, that it actually is scientific and affects us or biologically. So that's it for today. These are some of the resources, some of the links, some of the books that I read to put this together. So how do we close this out? How do we end?
Stop broadcast.
Stop broadcast. All right. Bye, everybody. See you later. Okay.
You actually have.
I did.